What are you doing while you are in your wilderness season? What are you doing while you're in your wilderness season? Are you singing? Are you praising God? Are you murmuring? Are you complaining? Are you just anxiously waiting? Or are you just laying in the bed waiting? What are you doing? You know, I woke up from a nap and I just received just something from God. And it was like I had to evaluate myself. I would call myself in a wilderness season and an in-between season. I would call myself going through that, right? And so many of you are as well. And I, got up from my nap. It was like around after 12 a.m. Fell asleep on the sofa. I got up, went in my room, and it came to me, and then it was like something hit me, and I'm like, am I like the Israelites? Am I like the Israelites that was in the wilderness, but still talking about how much they missed Egypt? See, I had to evaluate myself because before I took my nap, I said to God, I said, Lord, I don't want to, be disobedient. Or I said, Lord, are you upset with me? Because, sometimes we pray to God and God is silent. So, anyways, I challenge you to think, are you like the Israelites? Yes, you're in the wilderness season. Yes, you're in your in-between season, your molding season, your refining season, your strengthening season. You're on your intimate walk with God. You're seeking his face. Not just daily, but all times of the day. Okay? And you're doing your thing. You're growing closer with God. But at the same time, have you been um, reminiscing on the life you had in Egypt, where you came from? See, what God delivered you from Egypt for a reason. It could have been you were mistreated. It was just a place he didn't want for you. But have you been carrying on in your wilderness season? Yes, talking with God and communing with God, but have you been reminiscing on Egypt as well? Like, dang, if only the Egyptians would have, treated me a little bit better. Dang, if only this, if only that. You know what I mean? Think of all the ways Egypt was Egypt. And think of the reason why you had to leave Egypt. Was it a betrayal? Was it, you know, wherever you were didn't have room for you? Did Egypt kick you out? And not in a literal sense, but were you displaced? Um, all of those things. Then you got to think about in the Bible how God fought, you know, um, for those Israelites to be released by Pharaoh, let go by Pharaoh. So think about, is there a Pharaoh in your life where you fought to truly be detached and free from Egypt? And then now, you know, you're in your in between season, and are you reminiscing? Are you reminiscing about Egypt? Are you saying, dang, I miss whatever was in Egypt? Or are you looking forward to the lands that is flowing with milk and honey? It's something to think about. And I had to think about that. I really had to think about that. You know, um, I just had to think about that. Um, and I would say, think about when you were in Egypt, right? And you was like, I gotta get out of here, right? You was like, you had to go, you had to get out of here. But you still was in Egypt for whatever reason. When God finally delivered you from Egypt, it was a shakeup. And God had Moses come and tell the Israelites, the Lord, He sees your suffering, and He wants to bring you to a land flowing with milk and honey in Canaan. And you got to think about, who are the Moseses? Who was Moses in your life? It can be a person. It can be um, maybe a YouTube video, not a YouTube video, but a subscriber of yours, excuse me. Who are the Moseses in your life? Who is telling you, who is speaking, who has the authority, and who is God speaking through, is what I'm saying here. And encouraging you to look forward and to go, and is helping you on your journey to the promise now. Who is that in your life? Who is that? And think about what they say. But it has to align with God's word and with God and God's will. And so you got to think why you are in that wilderness. See, and another thing that came to me too. Some of those Israelites, they were born there, and so some of them didn't know God, right? So let's just consider you and you. They were born there. There meaning Egypt. So imagine you, in your. You probably thought that where you were in your Egypt, you probably thought that that was going to be your forever. You probably thought that, that was the only place you knew. Sometimes it could be a place of familiarity, or sometimes it could just be a place to where you were and you figured that this was going to be the rest of your life. It could have been a relationship, a potential marriage. It could have been a dream job. Think about that, a dream job. And sometimes we stay in Egypt. Sometimes we end up in Egypt, and we stay in Egypt because we may think that, not everything in life is pretty and easy, and you may have to invest something, to produce the works that you want, which makes sense, right? But then you got to recognize God's hand in your life. And when God disrupts something so abruptly, when God disrupts something, when God stir things up or shake things up, you have, that's why you have to just know God, and you have to know whether this disturbance or the shaking truly is from God. Because when you know that it's truly from God, then you would know to don't look back to Egypt. Know what it should have could have on your part. If God truly delivered you from Egypt, there was nothing that you could have did or could have done or would have, should have, could have for things to have been better in Egypt. God wanted you someplace better, and that's the part that I understand, but I have to truly digest, because what we see and what we know and how we feel, we have to believe that God is more powerful, He is bigger, and He is more divine than anything that we can see or think of in our minds. We can think something is amazing, but what God sees for us is something amazing times 1,000. But we have to trust that what God has for us is bigger and better than this thing that we think is just so beautiful. That dream job. Think about that dream job. Think about that dream job that you wanted so bad and you finally got it. You finally got that dream job. Finally. And, after 6 months, You get a little resistance there. You're like, okay, 6 more months, you learned a lot. You did a lot. You made your impact. Everybody knew who you are. You are respected and you are contributing greatly to that team, right? But, but you see that, there's some political stuff going on, right? There's some political stuff on that job, some political stuff going on there. So then you do another 6 months, and then you see some stuff, and you're like, God, this is kind of tough. This is my dream job, but dang, and when it gets even more rough, a lot of people we're like, okay, well, you know what, I'm just going to tough it out. There's seasons to life. Not everything is peaches and cream, and that's true. And you may even consider like, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if I want to go back there. But you keep going to work, okay? You keep showing up, and you are putting your best foot forward. You're doing everything that you do. You're doing everything that you're doing out of love, and people there receive you well. But it's just some tension. There's just some tension in a particular area. Long story short, you know, you're not working there anymore. And I'm sorry to hear that. If that is if that's anyone's story, I'm sorry to hear that. And you're like, dang. Oh, right? You knew that job. Maybe it was your dream job, yes, and you believed it, but so then now you're questioning your career path, or you're questioning that workplace, and you're like, now you're in your wilderness season, right? That was just an example, and it could have been a bad example, but now you're in your wilderness season, and then you think back and you look back and you're like, dang, maybe if I would have did this a little bit more, maybe if that person wasn't like this, or you know what I mean? And you get so, and you just get so caught up in woulda, shoulda, coulda, maybes, instead of looking at God and seeing that, that was your dream job, but God is leading you somewhere better. It was nothing that you did. Heck, you went through the doors of getting the job. You made your impact, and you see, God will always protect his children. Nothing you did was in vain. Believe that. Nothing you did was in vain. If anything, what was done against what someone did against you, or what someone did against you, was the bigger consequence. And I get that, you wanted to make an impact. You had all these things you wanted to do. You had this vision, you had this dream. You want to retire there, and now you're not there anymore. And you got to think about, how did you show up? You were planting seeds in heaven when you did that. How did you show up? You influenced whoever you were around. You influenced whoever you were around. How did you show up? Whoever you was able to form a good relationship with, and however you showed up every day, even the people that didn't like you, see, they learned something from you. They learned how to be upright. They learned how to be just. Now, we're not perfect, but I'm going to try my best, to use these words so you can understand. No one is good, no one is righteous. You know what I mean? But you were upright, and the people that didn't like you, they didn't have to tell you. But I'm telling you right now, they respected who you were. So they weren't going to they were not going to tell you that. They respected they respected who you showed up as. And some people, they don't like that. They get jealous and all types of other stuff. But long story short, you just have to have that faith and trust that God knows the truth of your life, meaning he knows what is seen and he knows what is unseen. So he knows what we see in the physical, and he knows it in the spiritual, and then he also knows what we can't see, meaning what goes on behind closed doors, behind our backs when we're not around, God sees all of that. And when you are showing up authentically and genuinely out of love, you are doing the work of the Lord on that job. You know what I mean? And God sees people mishandling you. I can go on and on and on and on about this. Excuse me. I can go on and on and on. When God sees people mishandling you and oh, and now you're like, well, that's that dream job. That was the top this, that was the top that. Yeah, top this, top that by earthly standards. Earthly standards. But what are godly standards? So you want a job that is approved in heaven. I'm not saying that job isn't. I'm just saying what God has for you, God is going to bring you even something bigger than that job could have ever given you. Even if all the conditions were right, something bigger. Because God is always going to call you to something bigger, 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 bigger. But right now, in this in-between season, I know I ran with that analogy for a long time, but it's just what you're doing with that in-between season. Just think, are you like the Israelites? Are you saying you wish, man, at least I had a job while you're in this in-between season? Don't complain, and don't woulda, shoulda, coulda. Just put your focus and your trust in God. Thank Him. Say, God, at least I was able to, make the relationships I had there while I was there. Or I'm glad that I got the experience of learning how to do this and that. I thank you for being able to, you know, go here and go there while I was with that company. I'm still carrying the example, but it may not be a job. It can be a relationship. Just think about who, what, when, where in your life, and just thank God about what He did, and what you learned from that season. And this is the biggest thing. Just know and just trust and believe that where you will end up next, if you stay the course of obedience, meaning right now, seek God, pray. Don't fall into things that seem attractive but is not purposed. Seek God. When I say seek God, pray. Eliminate distractions. Do what is right. Keep having that authentic, genuine heart of love. God is going to reward you. And a lot of times you don't have to do anything in the physical. God will just make things show up for you. So God bless you. God keep you. I love you. And please, please, please just keep the course. God is going to show up right where you are. Just keep the course. I know it's hard. I know it's tough. But you got to believe that that land flowing with milk and honey is going to be just so much better than that dream, whatever it was. Dream car, dream house, dream job, dream relationship, whatever. Trust and believe that God, and a lot of times I know some of these videos say, well, I want to go back. You never know if you just never know where you end up. Some things may even come full circle. But just know that wherever God will lead you is not going to be in a place that it will be a detriment to you. It's going to be a place that's going to be a blessing to you. Trust and believe. You got this. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel.